The year is 1970. With an incomprehensibly complicated set of ideas, Japan had single-handedly cornered the American car market and left US car manufacturers absolutely baffled. What they had done was they made cars that, get this, are small. An incredible idea. The executives at Ford were paralyzed and scrambling for ideas on how to combat this ingenious Japanese scheme. Until one day, one employee had a crazy idea. What if we make cars that are small? He was promptly fired. But then, a couple of weeks later, Ford CEO Lee Iacocca himself came up with an even brighter idea. What if we make cars that are small? And so they did. The Ford Pinto was born. However, it still weighed way too much, and so Ford was scrambling for ideas again on how to make it lighter. Until one day, one employee had a crazy idea. What if we do the thing where we stand on the scale before we put the car in it, tear it, and then we jump off it when we measure the car? Brilliant, John. Any other ideas? What if we completely disregard safety? Disregard what? Exactly. And we use only the lightest and cheapest of materials and no reinforcements whatsoever. And so they did. Because of that, the Pinto would deform quite a lot in the case of an accident, meaning that the doors couldn't be opened anymore. And it would become a literal death trap. Between me and you, have you ever looked at a car and thought, not enough explosions? Because I presume that is what the Ford executives thought when they decided to get rid of the rear bumper in order to save more weight. You see, the rear bumper is not only there to protect the paint, but it's also the last bastion of defense between somebody giving you a slight nudge from behind and your fuel tank turning into a Roland Emmerich disaster movie. Ford calculated that if they sell 11 million Pintos, 2,100 of those explosion accidents were likely to happen. So around 2,100 burned out cars, 180 seriously burned victims, and another 180 burned deaths. Ford also calculated that it would cost an astronomical $11 each to fix the problem. So recall would cost them around $120 million. Naturally, they decided that the loss of human life was of course much worse than losing $120 million, and recalled the cars right away. Yeah, right. They also calculated that they could settle out of court with each of the victims for around $700 per car, $67,000 per serious injury, and $200,000 per death. The grand total of around $50 million and a few burned and dead people would save them $70 million. Ka-ching.mp3. And so the car went on sale in September 1970. They had the audacity to call it a little carefree car. Not a care in the world. Henry Smolinski. Henry Smolinski was a structural engineer from Ohio who worked for various companies in missile and aerospace technologies. In 1971, he and his friend Harold Blake decided to found their own company in Van Nuys, California. Its name, Advanced Vehicle Engineers. Its mission, building a flying car. And since flying cars themselves are inherently quite a dangerous idea, they of course chose the safest car they could find. Except they didn't, and instead they chose our little, explode-upon-impact friend, the Pinto. The idea was simple. Take a small airplane, take a small car, a night of Netflix and chill, name it AVE Bazaar. You had the wings and engine of a Cessna, and you attached them to the car with a cable and 1, 2, 3, 4 safety pins. You have all the instruments you need for flying already installed in your Pinto's dashboard. You turn the plane with the regular steering wheel. You go up and down by pulling and pushing your steering wheel. You have an extra set of pedals to control the rudder to go left and right, an extra radio to communicate with air traffic controllers, and a direct phone connection to heaven so you can already beg for them to let in stupid people like you. If you take into account that the average person cannot be trusted with an IKEA shelf, you can clearly see how they thought about the viability of this endeavor as long-term as the average dead squirrel. League of Legends sounds like a fun little hobby. The Flying Pinto was not only a dangerous and borderline delusional idea, but even in the best scenario, it was very impractical. Because their thinking was, you just have to drive your Pinto to your local airport, take the definitely bigger than your car wings, out of your car, attach the wings with 1, 2, 3, 4 safety pins, and take off from whichever runway you want. After this entirely reasonable scenario, you just fly to the nearest mile-long, unobstructed, straight, continuous, smooth surface that is close to where you actually want to go, and then you just land there. With your airplane-engined vehicle going airplane-level speed, but with the tires, suspension and brakes of a reasonably priced compact car. In the industry, we call that a rare win-win-win. The first test. There's a rumor that every test had to begin by having the pilot state his full name, followed by "Welcome to Jackass." On August 26, 1973, professional pilot Charles Janus had the honor to give the Pinto its first public flight, which took place at the Camarillo Airport in California. Under the watchful eye of several curious spectators and a lot of press, Janus and the Pinto actually took off. However, the spectacle was short-lived, as soon after takeoff, the mounting of the right side wing failed and the wings started to detach. However, the experienced Janus reacted quickly and managed to put the Pinto down in a nearby bean field. Seeing the Pinto fail and crash right away made people wake up to the insanity, danger and impracticality of a flying Pinto. Except it didn't, and it became an immediate sensation. People were fighting for distribution rights and pre-orders were going through the roof. However, surprisingly, the National Transportation Safety Board was a bit more skeptical. They concluded that the Pinto was very poorly designed. It had many loose parts, was welded together very badly, and still way too heavy for the frame that they chose. As it so happens, this evaluation is perfectly captured by the facial expression of one woman in AV's promotional video. And so, naturally, they didn't address any of those major design flaws and went again right away the next week. The second test. On September 11th, 1973, they scheduled the second test. Their professional test pilot Charles Janus decided that he was unfortunately not available on that day. You know what, I'm actually busy on the 27th, guys. Sorry, the test is on the 11th. Bye. So Smolinski and Blake decided, how hard can it be? Let's fly the Pinto ourselves. And so they did. They took off, the right wing gave up, they fell onto a pickup truck, and the Pinto did what Pintos do. Needless to say, both of the inventors, as well as the insanity that is a flying Ford Pinto, died upon impact. The memo. Remember that whole calculation from earlier that Ford made? Some employee leaked a memo containing this macabre piece of mathematics to a newspaper. This of course led to a PR disaster as well as criminal charges and a bucket load of lawsuits. Oh, and remember how they calculated that they were going to settle for $200,000 for each debt? After the memo broke, the first of those lawsuits actually cost them $6 million in damages. In 1978, Ford recalled the Pinto. If you like this video and you want to see more like it in the future, subscribe to my channel. Thank you to my loyal patrons. Also, thank you to my new patrons, Sam, Smallcool, and Lord Turd Ferguson. Thank you very much. My first 100 patrons will be in the credits of all of this channel's videos forever, and if you want to be one of them, do what all of them did and subscribe to my Patreon. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Have a lovely day. Flying cars. What a great idea. I mean, have you ever looked at other people in traffic and thought, wow, driving seems to be too easy for them. They're too good at it. We should give them cars that could fly.